Well, when I first got the invite to speak, I said, wow, what a great opportunity. Bridging the gap between design and fabrication. As a lot of board fab folks know, there's probably a lot to say about some of the designs that came in. And when I thought the audience was board designers, thought I might need 2 or 3 memory sticks just to go through all the issues that we see. But now that the audience is board fabricators, it requires many fewer slides. It's more of theoretical, I guess, applications, how we run our business and how we respond to different designs or different challenges that we see in the market. So, just stop me in the middle if you want to. I'd love to have audience comments because I'm sure everybody has a story to tell. Just way of introduction, my name is Yash Sutariya. I'm Vice President of Corporate Strategy at Saturn Electronics. We're a rigid manufacturer, and I just bought a tiny little flex shop down in Atlanta. Still moist behind the ears when it comes to that technology, but being a glutton for punishment, and I said let's just double up our problems and have 2 shops running. So, just to break it down, what are we going to address? The designs, violations, and then performance requirements. Those are basically challenges that we run into every day. And in our decision-making process is how are we going to respond to those? Are we going to take them head on? Are we going to already prepare for it? Or are we just going to walk away? So, I like to sometimes put myself in my customer's shoes, the designer's shoes. Why do we see some of the things happening that happen? When it comes to, for example, designs that come in. 1 mil annular rings on a 18-layer board, and they want Class 3 requirements. Well, maybe it's because a lot of the designers have never even stepped foot into a board fab house. We were just talking about the number of shops in the U.S. going from the 700 down to 326, and those are the shingles. How many are actually operating? How many have converted to pure brokerages? How many are just a shell of what they used to be? That really reduces the opportunities that designers have to actually see the physical process. And just look in the room. There's little guys like me, big guys like DDI and VIA Systems. We each have different ways to skin that same cat. So even if a designer walks into one shop, they may not be getting a full representation of all of the different options that we have as manufacturers. I have some designers that like to draw everything with 1 mil lines and not convert to flash, and they say, when ARCAD comes back with here's your design for manufacturability violations, they're in shock. So, well, gosh, I went through all that trouble and I was able to draw it on my screen. How come you can't build it? Because, that should be the easy part. Well, there's some realities, laws of physics, machine capabilities, tolerances, materials movements that they don't really know take place. Their challenge was to get the design to work electrically and pass their software checks, and their challenge has been completed. And then from their standpoint, we have to understand also, they may have an engineering manager hammering on them. They have a deadline. They have size constraint, cost constraints, other rules that they find to be paramount over our concerns that they're stuck with. And the result is a design that maybe we have some issues with. So we run into some challenges just can be solved by communication, but we're always concerned. How do we communicate that back to the designer? Do we just say, hey, here's your design, it sucks, take it back? Or, hey, this is wrong, do something with it? Or do we try to explain the issue? Do we explain the process? Try to give them idea of that it's not just we pull something off the shelf, put it in a box, and ship it to you. We actually go through a series of steps to manufacture that from basically raw materials into a finished custom product for them. So it may help to explain to them what we do as a fabricator to give them their boards as they've designed it. The challenge is also, how do you not insult people? This is their baby. They've done the work. They've gone through all the trouble to route the traces and create that Gerber package for you. Some people take it the wrong way, and sometimes people communicate it the wrong way. I've had to slap around some of my CAD guys because it's so obvious to them that this was a bad design, but it's not always obvious to the other party. So it's a matter of just, again, put yourself in everyone's shoes that's involved, and a lot of times that helps in how you communicate that out. And then there's the classic response that we always see, well, all my other suppliers are building this, they don't have any problems, or we're already getting it. Well, chances are if they violate serious DFM rules at my shop, they're going to violate at other people's shops. So someone along the way has made a modification that hasn't made it back to the design prints. But that never happens at big companies, so maybe we'll just put that on the, to the wayside. But, you know, with communication, there's always tools. And I don't see enough of them out in the market. I used to just Google and steal people's process flow charts, and now I made my own just so I don't feel bad. But, you know, giving someone a snapshot of the fab process, you know, it may be out of their realm, but a lot of times it's a great tool to, you know, explain to them, hey, it's at this spot and this spot, I'm going to have a problem. Videos of the fab process. A lot of times we make the mistake of making a video tour of our facility to show off our equipment or our facility, when in reality something that would hold more value is take the focus off of your equipment and put it on the process. What does the etching process do? What are the challenges there? And, you know, 20, 30-second shots of the process go a long way to helping a designer on the other end of the phone line understand your problem and make a change to their design. So now we get to the point, you know, what do we do? Let's assume that, you know, the designer's constraints have tied their hands. They can't change the design. And from your perspective, you're looking at a choice. A, you could reject the order, which is fine. You know, you don't put yourself at risk for a high yield loss, and you don't put the customer at risk for you know, not getting their project done on time. But is that truly servicing the customer? Many times they've often, you know, have gone a week now from the time of quote, PO issuance, to CAD, and now you're telling them you're not going to take the order. So then there's the other side, you know, the other side of the coin. You could take the challenge and use different techniques to build a design that violates DFM requirements successfully. So, you know, in speaking with board fabricators, I had to go back to my days when I was running on the lines and getting jeans torn up by the tin stripper and fingers burnt by routers because I don't know when not to keep my hands to myself. But what are some of the things we used to do? Because, you know, for our history, being right outside of Detroit in the year 2000, our peak year of our industry, we were 90% automotive. I could almost use a hand drill and make an automotive board because they're so damned easy. And all that stuff vanished in 01, so we kind of had to rebuild ourselves. But, you know, going in there as a new guy, you see all the articles and all the write-ups, and everybody's talking about technology. You know, what do you have to go finer lines, and automotive, you know, a 10 mil line in space track was perfectly good. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much high technology. And our focus was heavy copper, so we never really worried about registration, you know, fine line etching, layer to layer registration, things like that. So me and, you know, my process engineers, we couldn't get investment from management to buy our way out of the situation. So we were always coming up with different ways, techniques, tricks, alternate materials to buy capability, or to generate capability. So I was just going to go through some examples here. In no way are these totally inclusive of everything you can do. Some of the material vendors I mentioned are not the only ones in the global marketplace. They're just materials and part numbers that I use. I'm sure there's equivalents, so I'm not out here as a sales jockey for them, but it's just examples of, you know, how you can get creative, how you can work a little harder and achieve. But you know, essentially, it's a buy versus try decision. I could buy my way out of the technology or into that technology by bringing in new equipment, new tooling systems, or, you know, try different ideas, try different techniques. Just to overcome challenges that my current capabilities pose to making this design. So, just to take an example of a challenge, and then, what are your options? Find lines and spaces. Basically, you can buy your way out of it. There's really cool shiny machines available at $180,000 to $250,000 a pop that have automatic film-to-film alignment, collimated light sources, or just work on your own process. Or film-to-film alignment is easily solved by running different test plots and looking for any nonlinear deformities in your glass or your tooling system. But also during imaging, there's advanced dry films out there that can go a long way to helping overcome. I was shooting 3mm line in space on a 20-year-old DuPont PC-130 imaging unit, but by using some from DuPont at least, the FX interlayer films and the PM300 series outer layer films. They're designed to resolve light much more accurately than some of the other interlayer systems like the MM series, and just allow you to do the higher technologies with standard equipment. Etching, you could buy the latest and greatest, the Holmuller, Schmid's, ChemCuts, with the advanced spray systems and the non-puddling and thin core transport systems, sure. But you're not giving them away, right? They're expensive, and they take time to implement. To do a full line install from order to install, you're talking months, right? Just to even get the specs in place, it'll take you a month. So where does that leave you? You try. There's things you can do on the like when I was running, it was ChemCut XL547. There was no advanced systems there. It was making sure your nozzles were pointing the right way, using leaders for thin core transport. But you can do things, by modeling your etcher, modeling spray patterns, just taking the time to do that and actually learning about your own process. You're not just throwing in some juice and turning it on and making boards. You can actually do high-end work using old equipment just by treating it right and setting it up the right way. And I'm sure, even the guys selling brand new equipment won't argue with me. It's just easier with the new stuff. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. Drill to copper spacing. I'm seeing beautiful designs nowadays that are giving me a whopping 5 mils from the edge of the drill hole to the surrounding ground plane. You add up your film-to-film tolerances, your core-to-core tolerances, your drilling machine tolerances. These are almost impossible to hit, but you can buy some nice machines out there. Over at IPC, a couple of guys even started bringing machines back to the show, and they're beautiful. They have 1/2,000 positional tolerance through linear motion on the tables, and even vision systems. As long as you have a spare $250,000 in your pocket. I lost mine yesterday at the table, so I don't have that benefit. So what do you do? Well, you go to your folks at Inselectro. They've got a whole division making specialty materials that you wouldn't even think about. Different entries, different backups. I'm sure Norm's going to go into some detail about a product called Bullseye. It's good stuff. You can throw it on a Mark 6, crappy old Mark 6 workhorse machine, and actually improve your hole-to-hole positional tolerance just by throwing an entry material on there. And I know Inselectro likes to charge a lot, but it's definitely not near $250,000. So again, you could kind of trick your way out of that. Heavy copper. This is as the U.S. market, when I think. 01, 02, we were just on fire. People were dying. People were saying, pick a niche, stick to it, pick something difficult. Heavy copper was one of them. The beauty about heavy copper is your materials cost is so much higher as a % of the selling price compared to standard FR4. In many cases, you can be competitive stateside. To the Chinese once you count extra freight per volume shipped for the heavy copper technologies and some decent run rates, you're darn close. And you combine that with lower minimum order quantities, less lead time from buying stateside. A lot of times you have a winning proposal. I've gone through it a few times myself. But then there's the challenge of making it kind of well. You've got aggressive impact on the drill bits. You've got heavier panels, but one thing with the drill bit was hole quality. I was starting to see Christmas trees in my heavy copper multi-layer, and it just sucked. I didn't know what to do. And is it just going less hits? Is it going to cost me double to drill this board now because I'm going half the hits on the drill bit? But my friends over in the supply chain, they came up with some decent ideas. There's different entry materials that actually have lubricant in them. There's even backup material that has lubricant in it to keep the drill bit cool, because as the drill bit heats up, it loses its cutting edge, the fine cutting edge. But again, there's a challenge, and there's actually people out there in the industry still working on ways to help us out, help us get by. And then high aspect ratio vias. Plating is probably like the last place any board house wants to step into because it's usually the nastiest department, but it's actually kind of fun. It's amazing what you can do in wet process just by playing around with different parameters. I went through this with our copper plating line. It was set up for automotive. 90 minutes at copper, 17 ASF, and it's great as long as everything is 062 thick and the holes are 16 mils and bigger. Well, not everybody designs to standards like that. So even with dip tanks, you can set up a lot of the similar parameters. You could go dual-sided rectification for optimum plating. Your anode maintenance, I was surprised to see how big of an impact it hit just to change the actual contact points of the anode balls, just by literally shaking my bag, my anode basket. But going through the extra steps, cleaning them out, changing out your anode bags, I saw my standard deviation drop from 0.46 to 0.16. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. But then, optimize. Again, listening to your suppliers is something that a lot of us have forgotten over the years. And we just got used to doing it the same way and doing it that way every time. When suppliers are out there, they're actually doing research. Like Isola, they're doing tons of research. They've come out with more materials than anybody else that I know of. I'm not going to say they all work, but at least someone's trying, to do something. And at that point, it's our job as a PCB fabricator to actually listen, to spend time with that supplier coming in the door, not just talk about pricing and then running back out to the shop or getting on the phone or going back to sleep. Take some time out to listen to them. What's going on in the market, and not just who's going out of business and who's rumor mill, but say, hey, what's the next on the agenda for technology? What are you guys working on? What can I do to make my process better? And we're not talking about emptying out the bank accounts. We're talking about just going out there and just putting some sweat into it and making those modifications. Agitation, vibration. It costs you nothing. It costs you nothing, but I'm surprised. Surprised and not surprised. Typically, my view of other people's shops is looking through the Brandford Group auction site and seeing what they've got on it, and it's amazing what you don't see. A lot of people don't even have agitation. They don't have vibration. They don't have eduction systems, things that I thought were really important. But then it makes you think, well, I guess maybe that's why I'm attending the auction and not bidding against them. And those are, at this point, there's barely any of us left. I don't think we're even that much competition for each other. It's probably a good opportunity to make ourselves better and grow together in this market. So, again, just take a look at what you've got, and there's ways probably to improve it. But, like resist stripping, I don't know if anybody else ran into this, but when you have a little bit variation in your copper plating, or when you're trying to put extra copper in the hole, you get a little bit high plating in the copper traces, and you can't strip the resist out from between them, which creates shorts. My brilliant idea was, we'll just strip the film, take it to inspection, and have them pick it out with an X-Acto knife. That worked for like a day until everybody almost unionized against me and revolted. It's the most mundane activity you can give someone. But, then you go out to the supply base, and people have developed new chemistries. I forgot who my supplier is, but, Scott, he'll go through and mix up chemistry just for your shop. What are you running, how fast you want it to run, and what kind of mushrooming are you getting? And he can make resist strippers as aggressive or not aggressive as you want and need, depending on what's your price point and what's your production rate. But, or you can go simple, strip as you do and just add a solvent chamber, knock out any resist that's residing between traces. Same effect, different cost model and different setup, but entirely making everything possible. 3 mil line in space you could really get away with a lot of these resist strippers. But the bottom line, we're always going to have challenges. I don't care if you're big guys, if you're small guys, you're medium guys, we all have our challenges in this market. It's unfortunate that it's not always a straight line market, as I gotta watch my hands, as the Isola folks pointed out. We're gonna always deal with ups and downs. I don't think life is ever gonna be fantastic for any of us, but we've got to have long-term view. One of my constant gripes about our industry stateside is lack of investment. Isola's making investment. I mean, they got put through the ringer over the last 10 years, and yet they haven't reduced their R&D spending. That shows a lot about what their management is thinking. And board houses should follow suit. I'm not saying put yourself at risk, load up on debt, and put in a bunch of shiny new equipment just hoping that it'll make you better overnight. But there's things like, intellectual investment, learning more about what we do as board fabricators, learning how to do what we do better as a board fabricator, and ponying up and getting some equipment in your shop. It doesn't hurt to have a high-speed mechanical drill with half-thou Z-axis tolerance. It doesn't hurt to have a new etching line that's not having crust the size of basketballs at the end of each chamber. Those kind of things are important, because as we compete, I don't know if everybody's noticed, but you're getting more and more competitive with overseas, because as overseas came on board and China came on board, they got their fingers into a lot of the medium volume market. And now their rates are going up, they're getting bigger opportunities and may not want to mess with the medium volume stuff, and it's your opportunity to kind of capture back a little bit. It's never all going to come back. Let's not get crazy, but you can have incremental growth through market share gains. Some of that can still come from Asia, but what's it going to look like when a board buyer's walking through your shop and you've got 30-year-old equipment, half of it looks trashed, you don't have some of the just even bells and whistles when it comes to plating enhancements, drilling enhancements, but yet you have an opportunity because you're cost competitive. You probably still won't get that business, only for just show purposes. And that's a shame. Shame on us. We have a chance to still be alive. We have a chance to grow and actually make some coin. And we're going to lose out on that if we keep treating our shops as, a cow that we're just milking away and not feeding. But, that's just my 2 cents. Everybody has their own strategy. Everybody has their own end game. As far as what we've done, we're privately held, family owned, and every penny that goes in is a penny out of one of our family's pockets. So, and from our standpoint, we've made major investments in our facility over the past 4 or 5 years, and the plan is to continue to do so. And it's regardless of how the market's doing, downturn, upturn, whatever. You should pre-fund and stay on course to your plans. And long term, it will pay off, because you're never going to have steady years for 10 years straight. Saturn is kind of a screwed up organization. We don't have that beautiful of an org chart. We have one, and it goes by the owners and they're vice presidents. One is in charge of operations. I handle, between sales, service, and the technology group, which you could consider to be engineering. It's just, a matter of communication back and forth. There's no formal system. It's just, okay, fine, I'm going to run this job, and it's going to be a pain in the ass, but I'm going to get it done. But next time I better have this piece of equipment or this process or this type of person involved. And it's a matter of consensus. And everything boils down to a business plan. What's my rate of return on this investment? If I spend $500,000 on Inkjet Legend, what's my rate of return? These are all calculatable things. It's just a matter of kind of putting the data together and going through that calculation. It's not right to say, well, the calculation takes too long, so I just won't do it. That's the easy part. Some of the challenges start out that, well, I've had it on order from another supplier for a month and a half, and they're still not even close to getting it done. And you just admit it. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing either, but I think I got an idea, and we'll try it out. And if you can make it happen, you're a superstar. No one doubts you after that. Other times, you're just taking on the challenge. You're telling them, here's the issues, and here's what I'm going to try to overcome it, and hit it. I'm 10 years out of automotive now. That all left in end of '01. So now it's not so much. But in the beginning, you're an auto supplier. You're just, you're nothing. You don't know what you're doing when it comes to our stuff. And they were right. Let's just not even go to the technology side. We used to have, I think our peak year in 2000 was 22 million, and I think 14 or 15 part numbers accounted for 80% of that business. Now, I think we closed last year with like 33 million. I run 1,400 job travelers a month. Every day it's like 70 orders, 20 brand new part numbers. Forget about the technology side. What about the data management? That's something we lost sight of, along the way. And now we were scrambling. We were literally doing production on paper and pencil, and, it was impossible. So things like software, which I actually should have probably mentioned here, but, ERP software, where, it shouldn't take 3 years to implement, but it's what it's taken me. But we're doing it. We're trying to get ourselves smarter up front in the office as well as out back in the shop. Yeah, some new sales guy comes in with another $1 million CD. But it's definitely not fun, but it's something that probably board houses, as we get more and more into these new markets, it's definitely beneficial. To control a process flow by preventing operators from scanning in the wrong process at the wrong time, it's huge. That can make or break the job. And it saved me. Is the minute we implement it, the next day someone's running to the office, oh, your software sucks, it can't scan in. Well, he's on the wrong page of the process flow. Give it back to 10 steps before where it should be. It's beautiful. It could have scrapped out a job, and it saved us. And it happens every day, unfortunately. Well, you have to have a few pieces of that formula. First of all, you got to have 3 extremely cheap Indian people running the shop that don't want to spend a penny on anything. Then you got to have then you got to have a couple of guys that new, wet behind the ears, too stupid to know what's not possible, and too stubborn to believe people, and you're forced to try. It's just a matter of how involved you want to get in the business. For us, it was just a matter of, when I got brought on, they said, you speak English without an accent, you're in sales. Okay, so, get some sales reps, no problem. Get a sales rep, and it's not that easy to get a sales rep when you're like a two-trick pony. First sales rep I got sent in an RFQ, and it was just ridiculously high technology. Back in '02, it was 8 layers with 5 mil line in space, and my God, this bastard wants it in 5 days? It's impossible, And so I let them no-bid it. We no-bid it. So now I never heard from that rep again, and I never heard from that customer again. So that was all it took for me to learn that, okay, first of all, never let that guy quote, and second, it's time to get more involved in the process. And that's where we were forced to try it. But, for us, it was basically new blood, new people, new thought process coming into the company, and forcing change. But, but you guys are Rockwell College, you got to pay. How often do you have that challenge? Right, and one example is look at IPC. This show. Our board side, when I first started so many years ago in this industry, so many, it was like 9, so I'm like a baby compared to a lot of you, but I remember walking in the show and it was at least a third of it, if not more, was just strictly bare board, equipment and suppliers. Now what are we? We're like a pockmark. We're surrounded by assembly. We're not even, barely considered a section of the show. And why? Because we're not showing up. Right? How many board manufacturers are going to be at this show? I probably less than I have fingers and toes. So why would equipment people come here? Why would materials people and chemistry people come here to exhibit? Well, my sales guys will take care of it because nobody's going to come here anyway. And we have to start supporting this type of thing. Start attending the technical sessions. Start exhibiting. Start at least going to visit people's exhibits, that are coming here. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste for everybody involved.
Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.